Hey Josh, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. I shared this invite with my coworker Nate as well.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
joining.
he's looks like he's joining now. So let me add him. And your assistant, which I assume is a note taker, probably.
It's a note taker. If he
Yeah,
can come, he's cool.
yeah, he's cool. Mine just records everything automatically, so that you know how it is.
Well, yeah, cool. Yeah, Jerry was speaking pretty highly um about you. Um
Well, hopefully that's a good thing.
he doesn't speak highly about a lot of people, so I mean not he doesn't speak negatively. I'm just saying it's a rare
Yeah.
occurrence.
Hi, Nate. Nice to meet you.
We doing?
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, Michael shared with me, I think maybe what he just shared with you about Jerry's review of you, and I watched a couple of your videos just now on preparation, and what an incredible thing you're doing, tying together the future of AI with marketing, and can't wait to hear about you know some ways we can do what we're doing better here.
Yeah. So, obviously I took a look at your website and everything, but tell me what you guys are doing kind of from a lead gen perspective or what you're doing today, just so I kind of have a good idea.
Yeah, we're just getting our feet wet. So we really historically have just we put some Google Maps locations up, created some SEO content, which really we just created organically through just doing like my podcast. And those things were keyword enough that it like jumped us up pretty high. And so we've gotten a lot of sales from that way. And then also like just referrals from people who we've worked with referred us around. And then as of late, we're trying to kind of push into more of a cold outreach, like something a little more reliable of a producing tool. Because I mean, the season the season ability of going through like the Google Maps, at least in the construction industry, is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and so now we're kind of there's a couple different funnels, lanes we're trying to market to, services. Um, and the total volume of actual customers are not like 40,000 or something where you could just email blast them
Yeah.
and hit a high enough percentage for that to yield an effort. An example, one of our lanes is Colorado, like rural water and sanitation districts. And I think our list, Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, is like 500 total in the whole state.
Yeah.
Um,
Makes it a little
It's pretty
tougher.
tight, yeah, and it's as Michael's about to describe, probably it's a much longer sales cycle. So
yeah.
we're really trying to make sure when we reach out, it's done the right way so we don't burn a bridge with that kind of smaller group early on and can add value and position ourselves, the right place from a content marketing perspective. So we're a little bit at the start of that, realizing that blasting cold emails to like everybody generically probably not the best way to build relationship. And we value those 500 to 600, potential sales in our state. We want to replicate this, in Texas and Florida. And I'd say like we're not confident that the copy going out is making the people feel seen and heard in the way that if you were at the head of a district, or a head of a city, you'd be like, oh, they tried. So,
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, it's common, right? Because it's all about personalization, right? And it's hard to do for a lot of people at scale. And it's hard to do with relevancy, I think, to some extent at scale. Um, so have you started that now? It sounds like you've kind of already experimented or got into cold email. Have you gone down that road at all, or where are you at with that journey?
Yeah, so we started by saying, okay, we'll offer like some sub consulting to just engineers in general. And we like blasted the list of like all US civil engineers. And we just tried to put together like a pretty simple value prop of, hey, if you're struggling with your in-house team and you need some more resources, like we're here. And that actually like we've done that for about 3 months. It's laughable. Maybe our messaging's wrong, but the responses were pretty poor. And we're like, okay, maybe we need to niche down and like send a more focused message. I don't know how many, we probably have spent like 80, 90,000 emails total. Um,
That's a lot. What platform did you use?
Apollo,
Okay. And then, but did you do your outbound emails out of Apollo?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we had someone help us set it up. We set up two inboxes, ran it through a SendGrid, so it was like fully warmed up. And
Yeah.
then I mean they're like delivering and stuff like that. Like it's not like our deliverability scores like tanked or anything, but I don't know. It's not really like putting us in the direction, if that makes sense, that we're looking for there. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is this is cold email's hard, right? At the end of the day, like, I guess I'm kind of blessed because I'm one of the few in the world that I'm an expert at Clay, which is probably the number one lead generation tool on the market right now. But I'm also an expert with Instantly. Uh, so most cold emailers are going to use Instantly or Smartlead as the two platforms, just because they have robust warm up infrastructure, and that's all they do. Like, uh, I have a pretty good relationship with Apollo too, and so much so that we've had conversations where for me to actually help them at the enterprise level, like get better at personalization, because they're predominantly lead gen. They're not really, they offer outbound email, right? The tools like SendGrid and different tools, right? But I would tell you, like, if you were going to do this over and do it right, you'd want to use Instantly or Smartly, just because um, purely from an infrastructure and integration with ESPs, just the structure, they're built to do cold email, period, and that's their whole purpose. And they're affordable, right? I mean, you still have to ascertain your leads from wherever you're going to ascertain your leads, right? Apollo, like, I don't get any leads from Apollo, I get them elsewhere. But the idea of having the right infrastructure in place to email and hit deliverability. I mean, you guys are probably smart enough where you're paying attention to what's going on with AI, right? And the two leaders, I mean, there's a couple leaders in that space, but the predominant leaders in that space are Microsoft by proxy of their $10 billion investment in OpenAI and all the stuff they're doing, and Google, right? And those are also the two platforms that we're all sending cold emails to, right? I mean, it's either a business that's using Outlook or a smaller business that has a workspace account that's using Google, right? So they're getting extremely good at identifying cold email, and they're getting a lot less tolerant of it, right? So we've had to learn managing, clients with hundreds of thousands of outbound emails per week, that there's just certain things you have to do differently, right? You have to maintain a certain level of warm up. You have to maintain um, right sending practices that, at least until you get a reply, doesn't include hyperlinks and video and any kind of HTML. So there's kind of a lot of things I could talk you guys through as far as that approach, but what you're describing is very common, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's what I went through when I first started sending cold emails. Like, I'm going to reach out to who I think I need my product and do it in the best way I can, but what I try to teach people, and only because I've experienced it myself, is that, and you guys run a business, so you know this, right? Everybody's getting tons of cold emails every single day, right? And part of it is creating an outbound approach that gets you to their inbox, which, a lot of people can't do that today. If you go look at your spam folder, uh, it's pretty indicative of people who haven't figured out how to make it to the inbox. But then when you do, it's about, to what you said in the very, very beginning, both of you, which is coming across in a way that you're professional, that even if they're not interested in you, that, there's always going to be a subset of people that don't like cold email, right? I mean, there's going to be people that you can send the nicest email in the world, the most professional email in the world, and they're going to tell you to go to hell just because you sent them a cold email, right? But the vast majority of people, if you approach this professionally, you do a soft intro of your offer, you don't think of cold email as the way to sell. You think of cold email as the way to make an introduction and get them on a meeting with you to then have that sales conversation. Um, and you do it, like, the analogy that I teach people, more importantly, is even if you do all that right, the way you're going to be highly effective with cold email is much like dating. If you're married, or if you want to date somebody and they're married, you almost have zero chance, right? Or at least you shouldn't have any chance. If you are single and you want to date someone who just got divorced, or is on a sabbatical and they're not really interested in dating, maybe your chance goes up a little bit just because you're that good looking, but you still have not a very good chance, right? But if you want to date someone who is out on 16 dating sites and going out to social clubs, your chances go up tenfold, if not a hundredfold, right? And
Right.
so from a lead generation perspective, that's kind of what we do, and we take that approach, is that, like, who your new leads are, and who your potential customers are. You just described them to me, right? But what are the signals that those companies are telling us that they're ready to date, right? Because that helps us all the way around, right? Part of You send a lot of emails, send 80,000, that's a lot, right? But part of continuously hitting people's inboxes is mimicking human behavior, which aligns with the warm up concepts we talked about in the beginning. But it also talks about, like, if I send 1,000 emails with a bad offer or to the wrong people and I get no replies or just a few replies, that doesn't mimic human behavior, right? Most businesses, when you send out an email, at least 30 or 40% of the people will reply to you. So, that's kind of, just at a high level, those are kind of the systems we use, where we say, let's find the right leads and use every signal imaginable to tell us they're the right leads. Let's hit them at the right time. And even sometimes just by luck, you'll make money, right? Because you hit somebody that was interested in your service at the right time. But more importantly, you send 100 emails to 100 leads that have shown signals in some various form that they're interested in your product. Um, your chances go up exponentially to blasting to 100
Yeah.
founders of companies that potentially could use your product. Does that
Well,
make sense?
what's so fascinating, Nate's kind of a super agreeing with that. And that's part of what and I'm kind of stealing the thunder or lightning from or whatever. So that's what he's doing right now with this list. And so, like with our list of the Colorado people, for example, there's a thing called the fundable list, which means they've already said, hey, like to the state, hey, we are going to be applying for funding within the next few years for these kind of projects too. And so we even took that another level forward and said, well, what kind of projects are the highest percentage? Let's focus on marketing those to these people because they've already
Yeah.
said that I have this problem. That it's not so specific to like where in their district the problem is, but you can guess there's only a couple things that cause these problems. And so we're trying to send content about like, hey, here's how we would think about fixing that problem. In this case, like I right now is a big deal, which just that's what we're writing content and sending them to about. There's no offer attached to it right now. We're just like, hey, we put content out about this. Here's how we like to solve that problem. And I don't know. That's so we very much align with that thought process there. Was always trying to get at.
Yeah. It works. It's the difference between I would tell you, like, I've coached a lot of agencies, like, even before we did cold email lead gen as a service ourselves, right? We've coached a lot of agencies, and because it is getting harder. Um, and you can find a diminishing degree of return, whereas you hit your lead base and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? I'm out of leads, right? And a month's gone by. So, it's you kind of look for ultimately different strategies, but at the core of it is, I will tell you, like, most people that try to do this on their own, we're all just inherently biased to our own products, right? I know my product better than anybody else. So it's really hard for me to write from another perspective other than my own. But that's not necessarily the perspective of the person that's reading the email, right? So, like, I'll tell people, I'll be like, if you want to get good at copywriting, like find somebody that you know that you really, really trust that's not afraid to give you their honest opinion, that doesn't know your product like you do, and send them your cold emails and get their perspective of how good they are, like what questions do they have, etc. Right? Um, and then I always use the test. Like I always ask myself when we send out stuff, like, would I really engage with this? Like, if I got this email, was it, would I really engage? Would I really reply? So that's all part of the process. But I would tell you, like, for most of my customers, we do about 30,000 leads a month. Not leads, but outbound emails a month. We do about 10,000 leads. So we send about 3 emails per lead because we try really, really hard not to spam people. Um, we do them about 2 days apart. So like over a 6-day sequence. But we drill that down as much as we need to, because some customers, their niches aren't that big. And then I have customers that have, could sell their product to every small business in America. We find the leads. If the customer has the leads, obviously that just makes it that much easier. Like if you're already doing the work on your leads, and like, hey, this is where they are, and then it's okay. Well, what can we do to help Nate make sure that we're finding more qualified leads amongst that list? Um, and I can show you if you guys want to see, because we just launched a new campaign this week where um, we do those 3 sequences. It's generally 2 paragraphs is what we send. The first one is hyper personalization to the business, where we just give them the impression that we've done a lot of research, when in reality we've used some high tech large language models and data techniques to get relevant information about them. The second paragraph, we do a soft intro of whatever we're offering. And then the third, the CTA, is just simply, can we send you a video that explains more information? Um, and that gets a lot of replies because, it's not asking for much. Like, it's just asking for permission to send a video. We use a tool called SendSpark where it creates dynamic Loom videos. Um, and we use a clay table to populate that with their information. And so it creates a dynamic video that we send over to them. And that includes like a Calendly link or a calendar. And again, all we're trying to do is get people to different stages, right? The first stage is engage with our first email. The second stage is, get them to see a short 1 minute or so video about what we're offering, or at least what we want to talk about on a call. But really the goal is we hand it over to the client at that point. Like, my job is to drive leads to them. I don't know, like, I can't learn 25 different sales approaches, right? So that's kind of from the client perspective. We say, like, we're going to get people on calls, and we know from sending, well over 700,000 emails at this point, that we know the percentages of how many emails we have to send at a general uh, volume to get this many replies, to get this many meetings, right? And so that's kind of how we structure it. But it works. I mean, it works. It gets the meetings. But for clients, like, and I'll walk people through a cost calculator, but I'll be like, look, at the end of the day, it's all about ROI and what your return is on investment, right? So if you're paying me 5,000 a month to do this, and you're selling a $200 product, then you shouldn't be paying me 5,000 a month to do this, because I can tell you from the math perspective that, even if I book you 25 calls and you can only close 50% of that, that's still 12 new
Yeah.
clients at $200 a month, right? You're
Yeah.
losing money.
Our ticket items are like 25 up to like $250,000 ticket
Yeah,
items. So
exactly. So that for you, it's more of like, and that's where I say you look at it too from, okay, well, what's our true TAM, right? What is the market that your product makes sense in, right? And as you've seen, you've obviously, got data and sent out through Apollo, right? I would probably guess, at even 80,000 emails, if you could get 2 or 3 clients out of that, it would be highly profitable,
right.
right? So
Yeah.
that's where it definitely makes sense. And I would tell you, like, in your approach of how you do that, you know, you've obviously gone through the process, so you know how to do it. Um, I would tell you that deliverability is number one, and then, at least in my experience, and I've done this for CEOs selling consulting coaching to a pressure washing company in Southern California to everything in between, right? That um, we just take that same approach of hyper personalized intro paragraph, soft intro, second paragraph. It's only been in the last 2 months or so to be transparent. We've started with the video ask, but it's given us just an exponential lift in reply. So today we're around 1 in 500 emails sent generates an interested reply. And so that gets us, depending on volume, right? If we're sending 30,000 emails, right? That's 60 interested replies. We'll get about half of those on a call. That's 30 meetings a month, in our general approach, right? And it works. I mean, it just, even if like in your case, right, you get 30 calls a month and you're closing, and obviously you have as Nate described, a multi-step sales cycle, right? It's not going to take long. If you're closing 5 to 10% of those people in the long term, it's, definitely a highly profitable adventure, but it's about doing it in steps the right way.
The how do you adjust that message based on the ticket size that you're selling them? Because I mean, some of these, like, you have to build a lot of trust with some of these communities to make this
Yeah.
sale and to come in. You're saying you start talking about your offer there after the hyper personalization part.
Yeah.
Um,
Would it help to show you? I'll
yeah,
show you
yeah.
what these campaigns look that. That's why you'll get a good feel for uh,
Y-
what I'm.
Yeah, and yeah, super curious to see just your screen and how it looks, Josh. But then also just to note, Mike, I don't know if I even caught you up, but it's a fun place to share this. But I was just making an example cold call with Samar the other day to somebody who was on the email list, and their demeanor was totally different. Like I was like, "Hey, I'm from Honor Engineering Solutions. Like, do you want to talk about like this, that?" Like I told them it was a cold call right away, and they were just right away like, "Yeah, well, this is our thing with water." And then when I got to sewer, I was like, "You know what everyone's experiencing right now?" And they were like, I. And I was like, this person read the email. Like it was clear to me
Like
that
that's
they
the
had read
email. So
it.
the one we're sent, like, because we make our podcasts and shows and blogs, like we were approaching it from, we could, because the list is so small that we're thinking if we could send them a trending problem because they're dealing with I&I right now, and then follow it up with a call about, like, hey, like, we sent, well,
Yeah.
we're still dialing the script down. But anyway,
Basically, like that conversation happened. It was very positive. They shared that they got a ridiculous quote from another engineer. I didn't try to sell them on the product. I just said, "Hey, well, love to touch in a couple months. They haven't done a pre-qual meeting yet, nothing like that. They're doing condition assessment, but it's like this is like a strong lead for us that we're gonna have to nurture because over time they need to view us as the authority rather than their current engineer who hasn't given them a productive thing. But it's like, right? It's not like we just can send them one email to get them interested in selling quite yet. So, but maybe
Yeah. No.
another way we set up the educational approach is we did 3 emails over. I did like arbitrarily like an 8 day break between the emails. They're all educational content pieces because we didn't want to like more or less overwhelm them. But it sounds like maybe a tighter cadence would be a little better. But would you change that based on like a totally like an educational based like campaign that's meant just to like get them familiar with our name and that we're a knowledgeable firm? Or would you keep it spread out over the month? Because we're trying to do like June, generally collection system issues. Like July, generally water, losses in water meters. Like August, and you just have like kind of a theme for the month and little more between a newsletter than a cold email, but applying a lot of the similar strategies. So that's where we're kind of like at right now with that newest iteration of the campaign after the 80,000 cold that went out. Now we're
yeah,
starting to work
totally.
this list of 500,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good idea. You definitely can take the education approach, right? But it's slow. I mean, that's the drawback, right? Whereas I would tell you, like, I have yet to see an industry that if you, and it's all math, right? But if you take the time to um like part of it is I think, so let me ask you this. How many clients did you get from those 80,000?
Zero.
Yeah, and so that's part of the problem, right? And I think I knew that answer. I was just gonna confirm, right? Is that like cold email has left a bad taste in your mouth, right? Because to some extent, right, it hasn't worked, right? So I do agree, Nate. I think the nurturing approach works. Part of the problem is it's such a slow return on investment to take that approach. And I think you're almost better, like, and I'll show you this campaign, but just taking an approach of introducing what you're doing through cold email, you're going to get some level of people that reply and engage with you. And maybe you don't close those people, but that reply is consent for you to continue to email them until they tell you to stop. And then I would add those people into a secondary campaign that's not cold email. That's more of an approach of like a subscriber list, like a newsletter approach, where you use like ConvertKit or one of those other tools.
Where you're
And
staying
then,
kind of top of mind of sorts of like, these
yeah,
people are close to it having a project and you're saying like, okay.
but I would tell you like I've just seen it over and over again is that the people think that cold email can't work per se from a just a can I get people on calls and close them? And it can. It just has to be done professionally, right? And it has to be done like I know it's all of our job to sell, but it has to be done from a perspective of not selling. Like it has to the persona I would say you almost want to create is that like I have a friend that works at another company. I know something cool that we're doing and I want to introduce him to it. And I would just send like a, hey man, I saw you guys were working on this. And this is why, I want to let you know about this. And should we touch base to talk about it? Like that's the cold email persona that we believe in. Just because I spent 17 years at a Fortune 500 company in the last 5 years getting pitched from every tech company in the world, and most of it on LinkedIn, to be honest with you. But even to be a cold email, it was bad. It was like so cringy. And like that's who we don't want to be, right? We just want to be and I'll show you. Like, so here's a real campaign. We launched this campaign Monday. Um, this is for another business I have. And so I'll tell you the solution we're selling. Like, it's pretty simple. You Google someone's name, and like companies, we all do it. We run ads or do whatever in multiple different places. But most people, when they first hear about you, they're still going to come back to your Google to learn about your business. And they're going to type in your company name, generally speaking, right? So this solution is all about if we go to Google and we don't see, like maybe you're ranked number one, but the next nine are your competitors, that's a strategic disadvantage, right? When people go to Google and they look for you, and the first thing they see is you, and then everybody else is competing against you. So we have a solution for that with this company that I'm part of. But we wanted to introduce that offer and that process in a very professional way. So I'll show you a couple different things. So first thing from like a lead gen perspective, we go in and we do a lot of research, as I was mentioning about the companies. This is a pretty big table, so refresh it might take a minute. But this is a tool called Clay. And with Clay, you can go in and pull in a lot of detailed research. Let's see if I can get it to open up here. It's always a little slow when I'm sharing it. If not, I'll just show you a smaller table. Let's see if I can try one more time. There it is. Okay, so we're pulling in, in this case, we're targeting founders, co-founders all across the world, pulling in a bunch of data, similar type of data you would get from Apollo, right? And then we're enhancing some of that with LinkedIn data. We're normalizing the company names, on and on and on and on. But then we do some detailed research on the business within Clay, and we're pulling in data from their website. So we're starting to understand a little bit more about what they do and what their product is. And then we go as far as doing hyper personalized research. And so this is where we get in-depth research. And a lot of this is hyper relevant information. So we're building up that base of information as if almost you paid someone to go out and spend 5 or 10 minutes or probably even longer pulling all this information about a company, right? And then we go in and we create some additional parameters of that, but it all ends up in a personalized email. And we also pull in the email address. We send that to Instantly, which is the platform I'm about to show you. So that's kind of our lead gen process, but it gets us that hyper personalized information. And then we come into our sequences. And if you can see in these sequences here, this is a combination of our AI approach and some of our copywriting skills, right? So, hi, first name. I'll show you the AI in a second. Your brand can be anywhere, ads, social media, etc. But when your customers want the full scoop, they head to good old Google, don't you? Maybe we can send a brief personalized video about how this will work for you, right? So that's our copy. But when you look into the body of the copy, you see that this is where we're pulling in the hyper specific research that's right here. So we are speaking to what's going on at their company, and then this is some algorithmic work that we've done where we know why they do and don't rank on Google and where their opportunities are, if that makes sense. So that's part of the AI capabilities that we have where we can actually go in and we say, we're doing in that clay table I showed you dynamically where they rank and as a result, what their opportunities are. And so if I were to do this for every single lead, and you can kind of see this on the screen here, it's literally dynamically changing the copy for everybody, right? So we're doing this in this case, 6,000 the 6,000 leads. We're sending I think around 2,000 emails a day. But at the end of the day, all that matters really is the results, right? So if you were to look at for the
So
3,600 leads,
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
no,
Go ahead, Mike.
so like the goal of this is like a foot in the door, and then you're trying to differentiate like some people how soon they are to buy or not. Like,
Yeah,
I guess what
exactly.
happen
Yeah,
what happens if they don't reply to this email?
nothing. Well, we send a second and a third email, and I'll show you those in a second too. That's it. Then we move on. Like part of so like great example in your case, if you had only 50,000 leads in a given area, right? Then and let's just say you're sending 30,000 emails a month, like I'm going to in this campaign, right? Then you could probably hit every one of those leads in 2 months, right? And the question you'd want to ask yourself is at month three, would I want to start over and hit them again? And the answer is absolutely, because I will ask both of you, Michael and Nate, like, how many emails do you remember from 2 months ago that you did not engage with or didn't reply to?
Yeah, yeah, tons.
Yeah. So the idea that you can recycle leads is absolutely true, right? Especially in defined niches. And you do it technically from like I'm running this campaign right now with 60 different domains and 180 different emails. And every domain is named differently, but they're all redirected back to my core website. And so when someone goes in, and that's part of why you use Instantly and that you buy subdomains and you buy 3 email accounts per domain, Google Workspace or Microsoft, is that now I can come back to this list, even though I've gotten only 3.3% of their people to reply, which is normal. That's actually really, really high successful campaign. That the other 96.7 I can come back to in 2 months because they have no, they're not going to have any concept of. Every once in a while, one out of 100,000 people will be like, "Oh, you emailed me 2 months ago." Statistically insignificant, right? And it's about recreating that. And at the end of the day, like this product that we're offering here in the last 4 days, I mean, this is a $15,000 a month product, right? So it's a very high value product, similar to definitely not at the level you guys are at, but we intentionally created that combination of hyper specific research, something very, very relevant to them. And then to take this further for these 23 people that have been interested in us, and I'll show you this. We're using that. I think you saw the messaging, but was can we send you a video? And pull it up here. You're about to see how many Google accounts I have, which is a lot. We're dynamically replying to these videos here for this campaign. And so these are all the videos that we're sending to people. Those are those 23 replies. And when I click on them, the nice thing about the software, and you can see my face there, but we send them this and it'll be hard to hear, but I don't know if I can make that bigger in the view, but do you notice how this is, if I were to click on every one of these, this background is different for every one of them? Can you guys see that on the background of the video? So we're dynamically populating that background with that exact Google search that we told them in the email that they were not getting results for, right? So part of this is that we're taking them. This is actually a landing page that when they hit play on this video, it has the Calendly link below as well. It has some custom language like our name and their name, some customization, but we dynamically populate the video with a Google search. We could do it with our website, we could do it with their website, etc. And then we have, this is just one example, but for our clients, we actually go in and we just have them create one training video and they get to say whatever they want for a minute. And then we dynamically populate the words that are said with like the company name or the first name, etc. So that just adds more personalization to it. So if you think about that from a how much easy, and this is just somewhat all psychology, but if I email you, you don't know me, you have the slightest bit of interest, and all I ask from you is for your permission to send a video, so much of a softer ask than can we get on a call right away, like everybody else does, right? So now I send you this video and I show you that I've done some degree of work. I've already showed you that in the first email, but I now take a second step and I show you I've done some degree of work where even in you guys' case, where this could be their LinkedIn profile in the background, or this could be something specific that only is relevant to your business. So it removes, again, the generic nature of it and it gets more specific. But again, it's soft. It's a soft intro of what you guys, maybe this isn't in this video, it's you, Michael, or you, Nate, and you're like, you're introducing aspects of, the issues with water that we talked about that only you guys would know, right? But it's just another step where you're getting FaceTime, so to say, with this client. And the goal is, again, just to get them on a call. And so from a data perspective, we know that, for these 23 people that have replied to us this week, that only half of them are going to say yes and get on a call, right? But we know, and I can extrapolate this out because today's Thursday, we'll get about 25 or 26 by the end of tomorrow. That'll be 100. 50 of those people will get on a call and we're going to close 20% of them, right? And so if we close 20% of them, at 15 grand, then it's not hard to figure out why doing this makes sense for us.
Yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense. That was a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. And part of it is, I will tell you, I'll tell you there's a lot of agencies that do this, right? And some of those agencies, like they would come to you guys and be like, the second you said you had $100,000 or $150,000 ticket, they're gonna come to you and go, okay, well, I'm gonna charge you 3,000 a month to manage all this, and then I want 5% of every deal, right? Or they'll try to negotiate rev share. The way we do things, to be honest with you guys, it's like we're flat fee. We show you what our cost is. It's around 5K a month for about 30,000 cents. And that's it. My job is to get you meetings. My team's job is to get you meetings. We manage the replies up to the point you get on a call. We're going to use Clay. We're going to use Instantly. And the first month is a setup month, right? So it takes about 3 weeks to acquire domains and email accounts and let those. You guys know you went through that with Apollo. It takes 2 weeks minimum to warm up email accounts. So we're going to warm them up and we're going to do everything properly. But the nice thing is that you do a little bit more research and you look at like what are the cold platforms you're going to see that they're going to be Instantly and Smartlead are the two. And from a lead gen, all of the agencies that do what I do well, we're all using Clay because it gives us the ability just to hyper personalize, get hyper relevant information. And for you guys, I mean, it's just you need a tailored approach, right? We can do lead gen from any perspective. Like I can go find companies that receive Series A to Series D funding in the financial industry in the last 3 months, or I can go pull 100,000 Google business profiles and scrape the owner's name and find an email and, do it that way, right? Like lead gen is not as is doing the lead gen is not hard. The aspect of lead gen that makes you successful is what we talked about earlier, which is finding those leads that then match, right? Or you guys saying, okay, I know that this persona of leads has engaged with us in the past in some capacity, or is likely to engage with us because we're the only solution to this particular problem, right? And that's an iteration process. That's where we work together in the beginning and we figure out, what makes sense. And what I tell people to do honestly too is like go to tools like ChatGPT and tell it what your ICP is, and then ask it things like, where do I get data? Because my team and me especially, we're experts at API calls and stuff. So we're not limited to Apollo to get data. Like if I know that an API exists, then I can get to that API and pull that data in from lead gen. That just opens up the realm of where we can get, like I showed you one clay table in here, but our specific work from just the kind of clay tables we built is it's all over the board, like scraping Instagram profiles to using GPT vision to look at websites and talk about brand messaging to multiple large language models, et cetera. So the even pulling in data from like PDFs, like what one of the things I figured out that a lot of people haven't is that almost every kind of industry has big events, right? So you can often figure out what those big events are, and in some way or capacity, sometimes you have to buy the list, but you can figure out like attendees of those conferences, right? And like it works really, really well in niche businesses. Like go find everybody who went to, this particular engineering conference, right? And get a hold of that list. And yeah, it's only available via PDF, but with the tools that we have now, we can extrapolate that data, stuff like that. So I'm sure that's kind of some of the stuff, Nate, you played with, but that's where we just kind of do all that within tools like Clay and then bring that level of enrichment directly into our outbound.
Yeah, we actually did do that. That's exactly something we did. We took the list. Uh, they gave us the list. I took pictures of them all, and the phone just took the PDF and digitized it out or whatever. Um,
It works. Well, the secret about lead gen is getting the most hyper relevant, personalized information about your leads. And just by pure luck, some percentage of those people are going to engage with you if you send them a professional email just to find out what you're all about, right?
what's the volume of list size? Because if we were trying to go like with more niche lists,
Yeah.
and I'm working on a few different funnels, like what would your minimum total list size need to be?
I would just match the capacity setup to what your TAM is, right? So if it's 10, like I'll show you, let me pull it up here. I I have it all mapped out on um, just a calculator, so I'll kind of give you a breakdown. There is no minimum. I mean, it's just we don't acquire we wouldn't acquire the infrastructure uh, to exceed the sending capacity we need to actually make that minimum work, right? So I'll show you here. So generally, we would do 30,000 sends a month. That's 10,000 leads because we only do 3 leads per email. We've tested that over time and time again. Now, if we were doing like a subscriber list, then you could do as many as you want. But just from a cold email perspective, there's just a dramatic diminishing degree of return after the third email, where it's like 1/1000th of a percent of people you could potentially acquire, versus the amount of the offset of those people reporting you to spam. But we would send Monday through Friday. So in this case, it'd be 1,500 emails a day. We only we will go up to 25 a day, but we stay very, very conservative around 20 outbound emails per inbox per day. And that's kind of what keeps our domains lasting for a lot longer. So in this setup, it would be 75 email accounts, 25 domains. And we're very transparent with our cost, right? So these are all costs that come up to what we charge, but it costs about $375 to get 75 email accounts per month because they charge about $5 per account. Um, we do one-time domain costs. We only do .coms because from a reputation perspective, it makes a huge difference. And we would go into tools like GPT or Gemini and create like customize domain names that are .coms that match your business's name. Instantly is about $97 a month. Clay is 350. Our lead cost is about 300. The video program is about 150. Our management of the replies and everything that happens after the email sent is about 600, and then our overall management fee is about 3,000. So it doesn't really go down from there. It goes up as the sending volume comes up because the infrastructure costs go up dramatically. But that's our intro point. But I would tell you, what did you guys tell me? Like Michael, what did you tell me that the client rate was? Like the long term
Oh,
value of a client. If you closed a client, what's the long term
yeah, if we
value?
close a client, they're kind of doing two projects. I mean, the lifetime value of the client or
Yeah,
the single sale, because the lifetime
yeah,
value
yeah.
is going to be closer to like a 500,000 if we were landing the right person, because they're going to run four projects over a few years that are going to total that.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to think about it. I look at it from if you're looking at ROI, right? It's what you're spending. It doesn't matter if you're running an ad or whatever. What's your acquisition cost to how much you're going to make from that client, right? Because you only have to acquire them once, right? So it takes one email to land a client at the end of the day. And so whatever you've got to spend to land that one client, and then obviously you have other costs besides email, but you're trying to evaluate like what is the return on investment, right? From doing cold email. At least that's how I look at it. So that's how I kind of run my calculators. And so like, I mean, that's a huge number. How about I just throw 100K to be
That's fine, because
extremely
I mean, I'm just
extremely
thinking
conservative.
of
Yeah.
recent ones I've worked with, and
So, and I would adjust this even down a little bit, but I would tell you, like, just to kind of give you an idea, well, let me ask you this. So this is the other number that really, really matters. If you have 30 meetings next month, how many of those clients are you going to really close
pretty low.
historically?
It's pretty low because
Yeah,
these
and it
are,
should be. This is big ticket, right? So,
it depends on what industry. So there are kind of some funnels. Like I also do commercial developments. Those convert, those close at like a 30 to 40% rate. The public work stuff, I'm gonna say it's like closer to 10%, just
okay.
because it's there's so much of a timing aspect, and they're trying to get someone in mind as they're going for funding. And
Okay. So the ROI is no brainer, but I'm gonna go even more conservative because you guys have done this. You understand the challenges, right? So today I would tell you, and I'll show you in this campaign, real campaign that I just launched this week, right? That the number we're looking at here is the amount of interested replies, 23, to the amount of emails we sent, right? So for this given campaign, it's like 1 in 180. It's really, really low. It's a really good campaign. But on this spreadsheet, I have that number at 1 in 500, right? So that's even extremely conservative. But for you guys, I'm going to take it more conservative and just say one. So what this is saying is for every 1,000 emails we send, that one person is interested. Okay. Follow my logic?
yes, sorry,
Okay.
someone's
Oh, no worries. So if that were the case, I can just change that to be consistent. You would get 30 interested replies off this level of volume. Now, keep in mind, this is not 30,000 emails. This is 30,000 emails, but it's only 10,000, right? So if we sent 10,000 leads, 1 in 1,000 replied, right? And remember, we're sending them 3 emails each. That's how you get to 30 interested replies. So if half of those with the video approach we take get on a meeting with you, that's 15 meetings a month, right? At your conversion rate, of 10%, then you should average. And again, I know that it's a retaining
Right,
sales
but
cycle.
one to
So it's
two
not it's
yeah,
not 1 month, right? But it's 1 to 2 a month, right? On
on
average. This
average.
is
Right.
hyper conservative, right? But I mean the ROI, even in that setup, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you could do this for a year, and the first client you're gonna make 45 grand off, right? So part of it, I think, for you guys is figuring out how to do it right. I kind of showed you every aspect of why we do it the way we do it, but like I will tell you, like that's why we do it, and I just explain it to people this way because it's for me. I make all my decisions to run my business based off number one, how much time does it cost me, right? Because my time is very valuable, and then number two, what does it cost me in return to what I'm potentially going to get? And marketing has various aspects, right? You can run ads and come up with these calculators and do all stuff as well. But like this seems very, other than the fact that you still have to invest money every month, right? Like part of it, I think, is overcoming the fact that it's not your job to be a cold email expert, right? And a lead generation expert. You can do it. I did it. Like I came from running a product team and being a product manager over 4 highly technical data science and automation teams to doing this for a living in a very, very short period of time. So you can definitely do it, but you have to have the capacity and the time to do it well, right? Um, or to your point, right? It's like that's where, you know, like I sent out a couple 100,000 emails before I figured out this. Part of what I'm very well connected with some of the biggest lead gen agencies in the world right now, and I learn things every day from their experimentation of trying new tools and trying new techniques and the challenges of some of these, like Microsoft, especially right now. None of us are buying new Microsoft accounts because Microsoft is sending domains to like 50% bounce rates randomly for no particular reason, and it's killing people's
Oh,
upfront
I did
investment.
go through that. I had
Period.
to change a
Yeah,
bunch of settings because I couldn't get through to Yahoo users and shit anymore. It was
yeah,
crazy.
and like we're learning, like Google is getting really, even though a lot of small businesses in the world use Google Workspace, but they'll use like a Gmail address to set up their Workspace account, and Google interprets that as a personal account, and so they're blocking those. So like that's the kind of stuff that we bring into what we do for our clients. That institutionalized knowledge, so that we do things the right way. It works, but it's one of the things that I would tell you, like I am not a sign you up for 6 months, big contract retainer kind of guy. I'm very much like, I'll tell you up front, and I show this in these calculators, like you will make no money in month one because it takes us 3 weeks to set all this, right? But ultimately after that, we're sending 3 weeks from the day you sign up, and we're spending some time with you in the beginning. We're asking you to make one of you or whoever on your team to create this video. But then from that, it's pretty autonomous. We ask you to, if a customer asks a highly specific question in an email reply, do you want us to kick that to you versus have us try to answer that? We'll do things like if you want to get notified every time you get a reply, we can send that to like a Slack. We can map that via API to your CRM so that you can see those. This kind of stuff that you see here. But after that, I mean, the initial setup point, it's pretty autonomous. The goal is just to keep pushing emails, and at the end of the day, where you're like, Josh, it's been 3 months and I don't have the meetings that I want. You're not in a contract. It's a month to month payment through Stripe that as long as you use your email, you can cancel or pause anytime. And I do it that way, and I run all other businesses that way too. But I'm just not I don't like getting into bad relationships with people, right? Like I may find out, like if I'm engaging with someone that, yeah, they're great at showing me all this cool stuff. At the end of the day, like when it comes to executing, it's a totally different story. And so I just have built my businesses where I don't do that, right? It's like, here's what we charge. We're very transparent. And then if a month from now or 2 months from now, God forbid something changes in your business and you need to invest that money elsewhere, or we're not doing what we say we're doing, then you log in the Stripe and you're done. So
Yeah.
that's us.
Okay. It's pretty cool. What the reason I was asking so much about list size is because one of the things I struggled with was getting a really quality list going, outside of the one we've built, and then I'm building another one. In your example here, your list size was like 10,000. Like, what's the minimum? It's a reason I'm being so
Yeah.
picky about it is because it's small, meaning like I can build three different funnels. I don't think I can get up to 10,000 in the three states we work in.
No, it doesn't. So what would change like is, so let's just say that list size was 3,000, right? So then we would only have a monthly send of 9,000 just to hit them all in a month,
Yeah,
right? So the cost would go down a little bit. Like in this case, it go down like $1,000 just because this
I don't have.
acquisition cost.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't need to buy as many domains and emails, right? So yeah, it would definitely go down. Like in this scenario, it goes down almost $1,000 if we
the,
just went
the
from
actual R
9,000.
costs.
Yeah, your
But
cost
like, but
because
from the ROI perspective, I mean, it would change it so it goes to half of
yeah,
a conversion a month, but
yeah,
then
because your sending capacity just dropped
just
dramatically.
right. That's why I was trying to. I was trying to like look
Yeah.
like okay, like that's why I'm asking about minimum list size because I see what you're saying, and it's expensive to get the team going. So I'm like, okay, do I need to max out my lists first and make sure I've got
Yeah,
a minimum
I
viable amount?
but I would also say I would trust that we're much better at building lead lists than you are. So maybe even though that's what you can find, that doesn't mean that that's what we can find. It's just is I just need to understand what your ICP is, right? And what you think your potential TAM is. And then, literally in a day or two, I can tell you if that list can be much, much bigger because, you know, it also depends on the decisions you make in your business to say, this is the product I'm going to sell versus this. If that makes sense.
Well, there's kind of two we're pushing right now. It's the water and sanitation, and then some stuff to some developers for like warehousing, like building warehouses and stuff. Um, I'd be curious what the list size would be for the three, or for the two, in the three states we offer.
And I could tell you, like at a simple glance, like a lot of what we'll do, and this is just very basic kind of lead gen, but we'll go into LinkedIn. And I'll just show you. I'll show you an example from like a recruiter account. So we can come in within Clay, and then we can just dump companies that meet a given niche, and then from there, I'll show you here. So this is just like your typical LinkedIn sales navigator type search. But we can come in and we plug in, like, give me an industry that you would go after.
um, well, we could like commercial real estate. I don't know if
Yeah.
that.
So we'd say commercial real estate. We can go specific, like company size, et cetera. These are all just different, drill down parameters, but I'll just plug in at a very, very high level. I know there's a
This
ton of
was a
commercial
problem
real
I
estate.
had with Apollo, is because their tags were not these things were not even close to tag correctly was the problem it was creating.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
at least in this case, this
okay,
is
these
LinkedIn. These are companies that have tagged themselves this. So at least there's some
yeah,
strength to that.
one's good, three's good. I'm not sure about five, four, I can't tell quickly. But
Yeah, and I'm just
this
giving
is
you like a
actually already like
starting
so on
point.
Apollo, I ran it out of like 35 that I checked myself, it got two. And so I was like, all right, well, this is a waste.
Yeah.
But then I threw it in ChatGPT. I said, here's a company I like. Can you send me a list of 100? And the first 20, there was like 19. And I'm like, how is that possible? And I told it to give me the
Well,
website and the LinkedIn profiles. It gave me all that too. I was just shocked that ChatGPT was better than Apollo at finding them.
yeah, I mean, it is in some cases, right? I've used it actually, not necessarily for, let me see if I can pull it. This is worth showing you. So one of the greatest things we can do to find that is I'd say like, hey, Michael, hey, Nate, give me like 10 or 15 examples of perfect leads, like perfect companies that match your lead profile. And then like, do you have, just offhand, do you have one? Can you think of a company that I could just plug in their domain real quick?
Ooh. Because I think they're called Capital Concrete.
Let's see.
What's the domain? I don't even know if he has this set up. That's you end up with some of these weird tradesmen that don't. Let me.
Let's
I
see.
can probably see if
Is this it? Capital Concrete Inc.
no, he's.
Okay.
I'm. Oh, is that him? No, hold on. He's got like 50 businesses, and so I always get he uses a Gmail account for all of our transactions.
Oh, that's
But
funny.
I've been to his actual website before. Capital Concrete Corp. Capital Concrete Corp. They have a website that displays their products.
Okay.
Um,
Let me move it in here. Capital Concrete Corp, you said.
Corp in Texas. This is like an example of someone who I've been doing work with lately that's been like highly, highly profitable.
This doesn't happen to be it, does it?
Let me go to your screen.
Uh,
No, I found it the other day. Here it is. Is this it? Nope. This is part of the problem we have. Like I could throw you in some water and sanitation districts. Um, but even they're super sus with some of this stuff. That's why we've had to spend so much time actually getting their emails and stuff.
no,
Because
and
they
it's no
won't.
worry. So I'll just use this as a let's just pretend that this was them, right? And once you identify the
Yeah.
website, it would work the same. So this is a tool, just to give an example. What this does is this is called lookalike searches. And so this is just another example we can do lead gen. And I just plugged them in. I didn't put any parameters in, but I could do keyword searches and stuff. The whole goal of the tool is to find companies using data and analytics that match the company that I gave it, right? So you can just tell and it scores it and everything, but it's pulling in companies that
Oh,
match
source.
that concrete company. Yeah. And it even tells us why. Like you can see it's all related to companies, et cetera. So this is the type of where people tell me like, oh, there's only 1,000 leads in the TAM. And I'm like, unless we're talking about, just so hyper specific. But when you say things like commercial real estate, like I know personally I could find 50,000 commercial real estate businesses in the United States, right? So that's part of where it's not it's not always, Michael, that the TAM is small. It's just that the TAM is hard to find, right?
Yeah, I
Does
would
that make
agree with that.
sense? And this is where we get a lot more detailed because like with this type of data, I can find at a core lookalike companies, and then with tools like Clay, I can go out and find the emails, I can find the contacts, etc. It's just what are the underlying data parameters that align with that, and and that's part of like iterating with you guys and saying, okay, well, hey, just give me that first list of 1,000, and then let me and I've done this multiple times where like I take that list of 1,000, I use data and analytics to score all their commonalities, right? And then I take those parameters, whatever those commonalities are, to find the next 1,000. It's just if then that kind of concept.
Yeah,
So,
no, no, I understand what you're saying. Just kind of what I've been trying to.
which is hard to do. To be fair, it's really really
When you're a
hard to
civil engineer,
do.
it's hard to learn how to do it.
Yeah, but when you have like me, I have access to you know like I tell people the biggest secret I have is that to do all of our research on businesses, we use a tool called a large language model tool called Cohere. And a lot of people have never heard of it. They've only heard of like OpenAI and Google. But the reason why we use Cohere is because number one, it's used by Google and used by Microsoft. That's how good it is instead of their own models. And then number two, it was built to not hallucinate, right? So it was built solely for the purpose to be accurate, and it's enterprise grade. It's like built into Amazon Cloud and Azure, right? So that's why we use it, because what it does is it gives us the ability to always send that professional email that you asked about in the beginning. It will never be that our email wasn't professional. It will never be that our information was wrong. It will always be, it's not good timing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times a day people write back to us and say, Josh, we're not interested, but thanks for the best cold email I've ever received. I got one yesterday that said, I have never responded to a cold email in my life, but and I'm responding to this one to tell you no, thank you, but thank you for the like. That's the kind of, I
Yeah.
think, the influence you talked about in the beginning, where if you're gonna cold email, because not everybody likes cold email, I didn't really like it either, but it works, it's effective. If you're gonna do it, you might as well do it professionally and do it right. You know what I mean? And not
Yeah.
piss people off. So, all
No,
right, I
I'm
kept you past your time, so I know you guys are probably running late, but let me know whatever questions you have. I can send you over. I'll just send you over the recording. And then
Okay.
I'll send you that Excel file that we went through. And that way, if you want to adjust everything, but happy to set up another call or answer any questions you have, just let me know.
all right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Have a good day.
Josh, thank you. That was incredible.